It should have been a very busy time. Watch this.
I have never seen the Chicago airport this empty before.
Apparently, this is the busiest airport in the world. I believe that. I've been here 1,000 times. But today, not busy at all.
The airports that were once packed with international travelers are now eerily deserted. The check-in counters are sparsely populated. This is not a scene from any science fiction movie, but rather America in 2025. Worse yet, each famous airline in the world is quietly withdrawing from the US. No grand announcements, no media coverage, not a word of farewell. What on earth is happening? How could one of the world's tourism superpowers decline so rapidly? Not because other countries have suddenly become more attractive, but because America itself has become harder to love than ever. Airfare skyrocketed, visa application procedures became increasingly complicated, and the airport experience only made people want to turn around and run away. And if you think this is just a temporary slip, think again. In this video, let's list 10 airlines that are quietly leaving the US. At the end of the video, there is a name that might surprise you. Don't take your eyes off it, because the aviation game in the US is being rewritten quietly but decisively. Let's move on to the first position. Do you remember the $99 tickets from Reykjavik to Boston? That used to be an easily reachable dream for thousands of young Europeans. With just a few hours of flight, they could be in New York, Washington, or Miami. But in the spring of 2025, Play Airlines, Iceland's national airline, suddenly disappeared from the skies of the US. Without warning, no announcement of withdrawal, all flights from Iceland to the US have quietly disappeared from the booking system. And since then, the number of tourists from Northern Europe to the US has plummeted by 60% in less than 12 months. This is perhaps an unexpected decline, confirmed by the American Travel Association itself. Veteran aviation experts had to exclaim, "We have never seen Europeans turn their backs on America so bluntly. After all, what really made them leave? Not because other destinations are more attractive, but because tourists feel that the United States no longer welcomes them as it used to." According to the latest survey from the European Travel Commission, 71% of Northern European travelers now choose Canada or Japan instead of the USA. The main reason is that visa procedures are becoming increasingly complicated. The additional costs are too high. The flight experience is rated as exhausting and unfriendly. And even more alarming is the concern for health and personal safety. An international travel insurance company in Norway reported, "The average cost for a simple emergency case in the US can exceed $15,000 without insurance." Honestly, no traveler wants an unfortunate incident to happen and then wake up to a bill that could bankrupt them. It seems that an Icelandic tour guide did not hesitate to express, "I used to take hundreds of people to New York every month. Now I tell them to go to Tokyo or Vancouver. I don't hate America. I'm just afraid they will be surprised because the American dream now resembles a gamble with their own safety and dignity." In 2015, the US was the #1 destination for Nordic travelers. In 2025, the number of visa applications for travel from Iceland to the US decreased by 48%. At the same time, visas to Canada and South Korea more than doubled. A truly thought-provoking figure for Americans. Is it possible that what America is losing is not just the flow of tourist money, but also its image, trust, and kindness? What do you think? Is traveling to the US still reliable? Leave a comment because your story might just bring an end to this silent crisis. And if you think only low-cost airlines are quietly withdrawing, then brace yourself. Because the next shock comes from a name that the whole world once admired, Singapore Airlines. They don't sell tickets for $99. They don't need loud promotions. They used to be symbols of class and sophistication in the international sky. So why did even they leave America? Let's move on to the next part. Maybe you've flown through here, LAX Airport, the pride of the west coast of America. Once it welcomed thousands of international flights every day. But now, what about it? Everything is gradually becoming eerily silent. The empty aisles, the seats that no one sits in, and the sky. No more sounds of takeoff. The largest airlines in Asia are quietly disappearing from the skies of America. Singapore Airlines, once honored as the best airline in the world, has cut most of its direct flights to the US. No press conference, no explanation, just not coming anymore. An empty airport is not just the loss of a flight, but the loss of connection, losing a part of the very image of America. What has caused a brand, once regarded as the standard of global service, to withdraw from a place that was once a dream destination for millions? The answer does not come from a single reason, but rather a series of increasingly compounding challenges. Landing costs in the US have risen sharply compared to the region. The visa system is delayed and complicated, and especially the number of tourists from Asia to the US has plummeted to alarming levels due to changing travel priorities. Instead of choosing Los Angeles, tourists are now turning to Vancouver, Sydney, or Tokyo, places that are friendlier, faster, and require fewer procedures. From being the gateway of Asia to America, LAX has now become a silent waiting area. No engine noise, no one returns. Just an airport, endlessly waiting for flights that no longer arrive. Do you remember when was the last international flight you took? And if you book a ticket today, is it certain that you will take off? Share your experience in the comments section so that those who are confused know that they are not alone. Is America losing its status as a dream destination? And if airlines like Singapore Airlines leave, who will come back? The name in the third position on this list will be a warning. They used to be close neighbors, but now they are also choosing to turn their backs. The two largest airlines in the country, Air Canada and WestJet, have officially cut more than 40% of flights to the United States in 2025. And not just minor routes as you might think, but legendary destinations: Orlando, Las Vegas, New York, and Los Angeles. Not because they are poorer, but because they no longer trust. Canadians are not overlooking the United States due to financial constraints. They simply no longer know what awaits them on the other side of the border. So what has held them back? Perhaps it is due to social instability when homeless encampments appear near tourist attractions. Costs have skyrocketed uncontrollably. A hotel in downtown Los Angeles charges $50 per night. $60 parking fee. Not to mention the countless ambiguous service fees. Meanwhile, for the same price, travelers can enjoy a peaceful lakeside resort in Quebec or Vancouver, complete with breakfast, serene nature, and no sound of police sirens echoing outside the window. When Canadians themselves start saying that America is too noisy, too chaotic, too expensive, then it's no longer just about the price of plane tickets, but rather a matter of the spirit. According to the latest report from Destination Canada, 69% of Canadians over 50 no longer see the US as a safe destination. 48% of those who have traveled to the US in the past 10 years say they will not return in the near future. What about you? Have you noticed fewer Canadian families coming to Florida in the winter lately? Do you have relatives in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal who have said they won't come to the US anymore? If you also feel that something is changing, please leave a comment, because what you see with your own eyes might be the most important part of this story. And now, let's move on to the fourth item, a twist of fate waiting for you to listen. San Francisco International Airport, once a top destination for international students, business people, and visitors from Japan, South Korea, Singapore. But in the past 6 months, many flights of All Nippon Airways, ANA, Japan's national airline, have been quietly cancelled. No alarm, no arguments, just gradually disappearing from the flight map. ANA is not withdrawing because they want to, but because the landing fees and ground support services in the US are skyrocketing. While the logistics system at the airport, from baggage handling, security checks to refueling, is increasingly understaffed. And the consequences sometimes do not lie in the numbers. A 68-year-old man living in Texas, his first grandchild was just born in Germany. He booked an ANA ticket from San Francisco to Frankfurt 3 times. But ironically, all 3 were cancelled. He didn't know how to express his feelings about the trip being cancelled, a feeling as if the whole world is gradually slipping out of reach. He said, "I prepared the gift for 2 months, but then they postponed it. By the third time, I wonder when I'll get to see the girl." The situation of flight cancellations, lack of manpower, and rising costs is putting hundreds of thousands of elderly passengers in a passive position. Not everyone can change their plans. Not everyone has the time to wait any longer. Have you ever prepared thoroughly for a flight only to see it marked as cancelled? If you've ever been in a situation like the old man, please share in the comments. Who knows, there might be others who need to be heard too. If a grandfather is left behind because ANA withdrew, right in the political heart of America, Washington, D.C., a European airline has quietly said goodbye. And the reason? Not everyone dares to speak out. The capital of a nation should be a place welcoming the world. But Washington, D.C., the political heart of the United States, is now witnessing a quiet retreat. From mid-2025, Air France will cut up to 46% of round-trip flights between France and the US, focusing heavily on routes that were once considered lifelines. This is no longer a technical adjustment. This is a withdrawal strategy, a symbolic step back. A senior operations director at Air France expressed, "We have to adapt to where passengers feel respected, safe, and willing to spend money for a positive experience." Why did the French, and Air France itself, choose to leave the US? Not necessarily because of the distance, not because of fuel prices, but because of the feeling of being made difficult, being warned, being judged right from the border gate. In 2025, according to statistics from Embark Visa Insights, the rejection rate for travel visa applications from France to the US increased by 31%, while the intra-Schengen countries maintained a rate below 5%. French travelers, especially business people, international students, and high-end vacation groups, are starting to shift their focus to Asia. They are worried about the risk of being denied entry right at the airport in the US. The bureaucratic coldness in the visa process, and especially a series of viral videos depicting experiences of being treated disrespectfully at US customs checkpoints. These contents are becoming viral deterrents, catalysts for a quietly but concerning wave of boycotting American tourism. Additionally, a report by the Euro Travel Index 2025 indicates that the all-inclusive cost for a week of travel in New York is 28% higher than in Tokyo and nearly double that of Lisbon. However, the customer satisfaction index is significantly lower. And for the US, the cost right now might not just be losing a plane ticket, but rather the loss of national reputation. When Air France, one of the highest-rated airlines in the world, voluntarily withdrew from the US market, it sent a chilling signal. The allure of the American dream is gradually being replaced by a more pleasant experience elsewhere. What about you? Have you ever experienced trouble when transiting or entering the US from Europe? Do relatives or friends from France, Germany, Italy, or Spain say they no longer want to fly to the US like before? If you also feel that America is no longer the global gateway, then perhaps you are witnessing a major turning point in the history of global travel. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. What you have experienced could be a warning for the future of American tourism. And when the capital is still left behind, what will happen to the smaller cities? Let's go to Chicago, where Lufthansa has just made a decision that has surprised many Germans. Germany, the industrial and disciplined heart of Europe, has just made a quiet, yet extremely noteworthy move. In 2025, Lufthansa, the national airline and symbol of German precision, began a strategic withdrawal from the US market. The lifeline routes have disappeared. Frankfurt, Chicago, Frankfurt, Atlanta, Frankfurt, Miami. Once the backbone of transatlantic trade for over 40 years. Now it has disappeared from the booking system. No sound, no announcement, no farewell. Instead, Lufthansa is increasing the frequency and prioritizing prime-time slots for flights to Tokyo, Seoul, Delhi. This is not just a route adjustment. This is a strategy to pivot away from the US and fully turn towards the East. The reasons Lufthansa listed that make the US no longer worth flying to include unpredictable exchange rate fluctuations, airport fees skyrocketing, visa procedures are becoming increasingly complex, security costs are escalating, and most notably, the risk of prolonged protests and urban unrest. Conversely, the Asian market offers lower operating costs, better policy support, and a booming middle class is ready to pay for long flights as long as they are served well. And what about you? Have you ever felt scrutinized, treated coldly when entering an airport in the US? Have you ever seen long lines, suspicious looks, instead of a warm welcome? If even long-established airlines like Lufthansa are leaving, could it be that America's image as a global hub is cracking, one flight at a time? Please leave your comments below. What you have experienced could be the voice for millions of others who have never dared to share. From the other side of the earth, a peaceful, polite nation that has never troubled anyone. Yet now, Australia and Jetstar have officially removed the United States from their flight map. For the first time since its establishment, Jetstar has almost no flights to the US. And the most ironic part, the Sydney-Los Angeles flight was once considered a symbol of East-West connection. Now, it's all just a memory. The CEO of Jetstar candidly stated, landing fees at US airports have increased by up to 38%. The visa procedures are complex to the point of being unreasonable. Our passengers don't want to pay just to get into trouble. Jetstar has received numerous complaints from the elderly passenger group, who are loyal customers and willing to spend. They shared, "There is no appropriate support for elderly passengers at the American airport. Lack of staff who speak Australian accented English or are easy for the elderly to understand. Emergency medical fees are so exorbitant that without insurance, one would go bankrupt." Australians, the dream tourists of every nation, are quietly leaving. They are known for being polite, respectful of cultures, and not causing trouble. Generous spenders often return multiple times, always follow the rules, and almost never complain. But when they feel unwelcome, they don't speak up, don't create drama, don't demand. They just change direction. And when you realize it, it will be too late. The US is losing a group of loyal, low-risk, high-spending and trustworthy tourists. According to data from the Australia Tourism Board, in 2025, the number of Australian visitors to the US decreased by more than 44% compared to the same period in 2019. Meanwhile, New Zealand, South Korea and Canada are becoming ideal alternative options. No one thought that the US would lose a friend as dear as Australia, a nation that has never turned its back on the US. So if they leave today, without a word of reproach, perhaps it's time for America to look in the mirror. Have you ever met an Australian who said, "I don't want to go back to America anymore"? If so, share that story, because their silence speaks for millions of others. There was a time when Emirates Airlines was likened to a modern magic carpet, transporting the wealthy elite of the Middle East to New York, LA, and Miami with admiration and expectation. Dubai entrepreneurs, VIP guests from Abu Dhabi, and celebrities from Doha poured money into first-class tickets, enjoying luxurious services and shopping in the US as a high society ritual. But in 2025, the picture was completely different. Emirates Airlines, the iconic airline of the UAE, has quietly cut nearly 50% of its flights to the US. The flights from Dubai to New York, Boston, and Orlando, connecting flights from Abu Dhabi and Doha via Emirates SkyTeam all have been reduced, rescheduled to inconvenient times, or even completely disappeared from the mainstream ticketing system. A strategic withdrawal and a warning. The reason, not about the economy, but it's about emotions. It's an image. It's a belief. A senior Emirates executive shared anonymously with Gulf Today. Middle Eastern passengers, especially the high-end group, no longer feel welcome in the US. Too many checks, too much suspicion, and no longer a sense of luxury or safety. Not a few business-class passengers from the UAE were held for hours at US airports simply because they held Middle Eastern passports. A VIP guest from Abu Dhabi recounted, "I bought a ticket for over $15,000 to fly to New York for a conference. But when I arrived at JFK, I was taken to a private room and questioned for 30 minutes because I had a UAE passport. That was the last time I went to the US." A report by Global Elite Traveler Insight indicated that airport security costs in the US have increased by 42% in 18 months. The complaint rate from business-class passengers from the Middle East is the highest since 9/11. Meanwhile, countries like Switzerland, Japan, and Singapore are enhancing premium, unbiased, and efficient security experiences. And then, when one of the world's highest-spending tourist groups turns their back, what does the US lose? Losing revenue from luxury hotels, loss of luxury shopping sales, losing high-value personal investment partnerships. Not everyone leaves with a bang. But when the Middle Eastern elite choose other destinations, the US tourism budget loses billions without even realizing it. When did the American dream turn into a security nightmare? It's not that they hate America. It's not that they don't have enough money to come. But perhaps it's because they no longer feel respected. Do you know anyone who has flown Emirates to the US? Did they share any unpleasant stories about immigration, going through airport security, or when they first arrived in the US? If so, please leave a comment below, because perhaps that story is a warning for a crumbling American dream. Every summer, Incheon Airport used to witness long lines of eager South Korean tourists flying to California, Hollywood, Disneyland, Las Vegas, San Francisco. America, in the eyes of Koreans, was once a modern and expansive Western dream. However, in 2025, that changed. Korean Air, the leading airline in Asia, has cut more than 50% of its flights to the US, focusing on routes that were once considered the backbone. Now, many flights have been cancelled, others have been rescheduled to off-peak hours, or replaced with routes from Seoul to Vancouver and Seoul to Toronto. According to data from the Korea Civil Aviation Report, the number of round-trip tickets between Korea and the US has decreased by 58% compared to the same period in 2022. Meanwhile, round-trip tickets from Korea to Canada have increased by 64%, especially among students, vacationers, and investors looking to settle. An analysis from the Korea Tourism Organization stated, "Canada is being viewed as a friendlier version of the United States, a safe, accessible place that does not make Asians feel scrutinized." Why are Koreans turning their backs on California, once an iconic destination? Perhaps partly due to the instability in San Francisco and Los Angeles, which has caused concern among many families. The outbreak of homelessness near tourist attractions is causing safety concerns. The costs of car rentals, hotels, and emergency medical services have skyrocketed. And especially, the fear of being discriminated against at customs and the airport. A family from Busan shared, "Last year, we took our child to LA for a summer vacation. But just a few hours after arriving, we were stopped by airport staff for a thorough luggage inspection without any clear reason. My child was worried and confused. I no longer want to go back." For Koreans, travel is a family affair, not an adventure. When the feeling of being disturbed, monitored, or judged solely because of nationality appears at the US border, trust immediately shatters. On the contrary, Canada has expanded the ETA visa, making the entry procedures smoother, with bilingual Korean services being popular in Vancouver and Toronto. And have you ever witnessed Asian tourists being hassled when entering the US? Do your friends from South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan still want to come to the US like before? Or are they gradually shifting towards Canada, Japan, or Europe? Please share your story below, because each real experience can be a warning for the future of the American tourism industry. There was a time when the London-New York flight was a symbol of globalization. But in 2025, everything is quietly collapsing. British Airways, the leading airline of the United Kingdom, has just cut 40% of its flights to the US. The London-New York route, which used to have up to 15 flights per day, now has fewer than 6, and most of them are during off-peak hours, no longer suitable for business travelers or VIP customers. Besides New York, the London, Boston, London, Philadelphia, and Manchester, Miami routes have also been cancelled or transferred to subsidiary airlines. According to data from the UK Civil Aviation Authority, the total number of passengers from the UK to the US decreased by 37% compared to the same period in 2023. Revenue from premium tickets on flights to the US dropped by 51%. Meanwhile, the London, Dubai and London, Singapore routes grew by 34% and 41% respectively. A supervisor at Heathrow shared, "Passengers often complain not about the ticket prices, but about the feeling of being disturbed. From check-in to landing at JFK, they say they no longer find it worthwhile. Entering the US is no longer a matter of tourism, but rather an examination. Waiting in line for 90 minutes at the airport. The baggage check was almost absurd. Detailed questioning even though there is a valid visa. The unfriendly attitude from the security staff." A female director of a technology company in Manchester said, "I used to go to the US 3 to 4 times a year to sign contracts and raise funds. Now I am meeting partners in Toronto and Zurich. Still the West, but with fewer distractions and more respect." Meanwhile, British youth, the generation that once dreamed the American dream, are now choosing a different direction. The number of student visa applications to the US from the UK decreased by 28% in 2024, while the number of applications for studying in Canada, Germany and Singapore has increased by more than 40%. Instead of dreaming of Harvard or Silicon Valley, many young people in the UK are seeking opportunities in Asia, a place where the US once represented a breakthrough. Do you still dream of a flight to the US? Or have you ever given up just because of being treated disrespectfully? Please share your story in the comments, because sometimes personal experiences are the strongest reminders for a nation that is gradually losing its identity. This is not just a travel story, but a warning about how America is being perceived globally. When Canadians see that going to the US is no longer worth it. When Australians say, "We no longer feel welcome." When Koreans, Germans and Brits choose Canada, Japan or Switzerland. When global icons like Emirates, Lufthansa and British Airways all withdraw simultaneously. Then perhaps the problem does not lie with the world, but rather the problem lies within America itself. Do we still have enough faith to make them come back? Do Americans realize that losing trust, losing emotion, is what causes the tourism industry to collapse quickly? Because while you are confused in the empty parking lot at LAX, a European family is checking into a resort in Vancouver, a Korean student is landing in Toronto, and a Middle Eastern businessman is signing a contract in Singapore. Have you ever witnessed any changes in how international friends view the United States? Do you feel that airports, visas, or services in the US have changed, become colder, more unpleasant? Please share your story in the comments section, because each of your experiences can be an important part of the big picture the world is painting about America. If you find this video offers a new perspective, please like to spread the message and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. This video is based on public reports, actual statistics, and quotes from international news sources. We do not intend to attack any country or organization. Every perspective reflects global travel trends through an analytical, reflective, and emotional lens. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.